Ellison, who made it on commission for a woman who played in the New York Philharmonic.
Oh.
And she played it for 25 years and then passed away, and I was able to get it after that. And it's really an amazing violin. So it's the same exact thing. But somebody also asked me what this low violin thing was that I was playing, and this has it's very similar to viola. It's a little bit, it's maybe an inch longer than a viola would be, and it's really a kind of a one-of-a-kind instrument. The story behind it is really fun because I was doing a film score for a remake of King Arthur that Disney was doing a while back with Keira Knightley, and we were looking for a really kind of a real low medieval kind of barbaric sounding stringed instrument that could play in the movie score. And I called up and they asked me if I could put something together for it. So I called up my friend who lives in Massachusetts who owns a violin shop. I didn't have anything that was quite like that. I called him up, asked if he knew of anybody that, you know, if he had any old like folk weird violins. He didn't, but he said that he knew of a guy who was a physics professor at Amherst College, which is where his shop is, and that this physics professor, as a hobby, makes weird-sized violins. Like you do, exactly. You know how violins, the violin family is like really, like for the last 400 years has been exactly the same. You have violins, you have violas, they're tuned, you know, they're all tuned the same way. A cello and then a bass. Well, this instrument, this guy thought, what if we made instruments that were kind of in the in-between sizes? And so it's like in between a viola and a cello. The notes on a viola, if you play the open strings on a viola, it sounds like this. And this is where this one goes. So it's really evocative sound. And anyway, the physics professor, I got off the phone with my friend, the physics professor walks into his shop half hour later.
Wow.
Hadn't been in like a year. My friend tells him about what I was looking for. The physics professor runs home and he gets this instrument, runs back and says, oh, this will be perfect for him. They FedEx it to me in Los Angeles. I had it at 8 o'clock the next morning. And it was like exactly what I was kind of envisioning. And it worked great because a lot of that movie is orchestral, a big orchestra, and I'm playing solos on this along with orchestra, and this has its own guy. You know, it's not a cello, it's not a viola. Anyway, it was really great for that. Right after we finished that one, we did Pirates of the Caribbean, and I played it all through that, and it was really working out really well. I was really, really happy. I tried calling this guy endlessly, and he was like a Luddite who he didn't have an answering machine, never answered his phone, didn't have email, and it took me literally months of calling before I got through to the guy, and thanked him profusely for you know, being so generous. I mean, this is hundreds of hours worth of handwork to make, and it's a one-of-a-kind thing. To just send it to somebody you've never met or talked to, it was really extraordinary. And I appreciated it so much. And so I talked to him on the phone for the first time, and he's really nice. He agrees to sell it to me. He's really glad that I'm having fun with it. And I happened to ask him about the wood that it's made out of. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's made out of, the back and sides are made out of bird's eye maple, which is a really beautiful wood. It's got this beautiful kind of a grain to it, but you never see violins made out of bird's eye maple. Violins are like almost entirely made out of this type of tiger maple, it's called. So it's a totally different thing. And so, you know, one of the reasons that I thought it was so unique and so cool is like, wow, how did he make it out of this? Because it's really hard to work with. The grain of the wood where the bird's eyes are little faults in the wood. It's like a little knot. And the back of this instrument started off probably about 1.5 inches thick of wood. And he has to carve it with a certain curve and a certain shape this way to 1/8 of an inch thick. So if anything happens along the way, you got to start from scratch. And so anyway, I really appreciated the wood, and I grew up doing woodworking with my grandfather, and I really appreciated how hard it was to finish this. I asked him how he happened to make it out of that wood, and he said, well, I was singing in a church choir, and I was on my way into church rehearsal one morning after a big storm came through, and a 200-year-old maple tree fell down across the walkway to the front of this church. And they like walked around it, and on their way out, you know, the chainsaws were going, and they were cutting it up to make, you know, to open up the pathway. And they made, he got some of the wood from that tree, dried it out, and made this instrument out of it, which I thought was really cool. And I asked him, I was from that area, Amherst, Massachusetts, originally, and I asked him, you know, what church it was, and it turns out it was the same church that I was married in, and my parents were married in. It still gives me chills.
Awesome.
I know, and I'm sitting in Los Angeles hearing this story and looking at this wood saying, oh my goodness.
Gosh.
How did that happen?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's one of those